welcome to the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and sorry it's been a while. It's been a few weeks, I think, since we were on the air here. We had the Sacred Word Revealed conference in Atlanta and several other things in between the last time you heard from me and today. But now all that's behind us and we are moving forward, and I'm excited to be joined once again by my friend and co-host, Zen Garcia. Zen, are you there, sir?
I am, brother, and it has been a while, but I'm glad that everything with regard to all that leading up to the conference and everything was completed and a success. And I hope you had a good time. We certainly appreciate your willingness to come down and to join us. I know a few people were fearful, but everything went down incredibly. Everybody had a marvelous experience, and from what I understand, nobody got sick, or anything of that nature, and so that was a positive. But glad you're home. I know you had a hard time getting out here, and you had to endure several delays as well. So, but yeah, thanks again, brother, for all that you endured.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, other than the airplane issues, which both going and coming back, there were issues, but it all got resolved, and you never know. Sometimes you get frustrated with delays and stuff like that, but you think to yourself, okay, Father, what are you protecting me from? And I know I was praying myself, and I know Sheila was, and others were as well, for everybody's safety coming and going, and while we're there. So who knows, maybe it was weird because we're sitting on the plane, and we get off the plane, get back on the plane, get off the plane, get on the plane, sit on the plane for 2 hours, and you're watching maintenance guys come on and stuff. And I was in aviation maintenance for 8 years, so it's like, okay, I'm glad they're doing it, I'm glad they're being thorough, but let's make a decision here. And then they're like, well, yeah, this flight's canceled. And as we got off the plane, they said, well, you guys could get on a 4 o'clock in the morning flight. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not. I said, do you have a later flight? And they're like, yeah, we got one about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to miss the Georgia Guidestones tour, but I'll get there on time. So, it all worked out. I mean, to be honest with you, I was a bit apprehensive about going to the Guidestones anyway, but I'm glad you guys shot video of it and everybody was safe. And that was, what was that like? I mean, I've read about it and I've seen pictures of it certainly, and I'm familiar with the background and history of it. But what was it like to actually be there in that location?
I think it was a really cool experience, especially for those that came from afar. I had been there myself before. We went after the flat Earth globe debate that Dr. Pigeon and I had here in Atlanta after that conference, but it was just myself, my children, and Laurel Austin that went down for that. But so it was good to be there with a bunch of people and to be able to pray, to encircle it and to pray against it and the agenda of the New World Order. But certainly for those that were not familiar with it, like one of the girls that went down with me that was working for me at the time, she's kind of new to all the New World Order, and for this agenda to be right there, printed on the monuments in 10 languages, and this being their dominant thought and the things that they would like to create or make happen over the next years, and especially with the COVID and all that, it was something to really ponder and consider. And she was like, why doesn't everybody know about this? Why isn't this spoken about more? And so I think it was a good thing for us to begin the whole exposing the end time mysteries and working against the matrix of evil, that kind of, as far as the theme of the conference, and to kick it off that way, I think it was greatly beneficial for a lot of people who attended.
Mm-hmm. You talking about the woman she was kind of like sitting on the
Dana.
stage. Yeah, Dana. When when you and I were doing the panel discussion. So this was all that was new. Like all the conference
a lot
stuff
of this
was new.
is kind of new for her. Yeah, she's a believer, but she's just not been exposed to a lot of these things. And well, of course, we blew her mind
So you got
over the course of the weekend. Yeah.
She got a 6-pack of red pills.
Right.
Here, open wide. Here's a fire hose. Drink it down.
Right.
As did what was his name? The pastor gentleman that was sitting next to me.
Oh, yeah, Zach.
Zach.
Zach Mason. Yeah.
Quite a bit was. Well, he left after his first presentation, so he didn't get to sit in on my second one or my first one, and then he got there, well, just before I went on for my second one. So he had to been like, what? What is happening?
Biblical cosmology was new to him. He didn't even know it was a thing, and so, yeah, he got an earful too.
It was funny because Joy came up to me right after. She's like, yeah. So yeah, Zach doesn't know that. I was like, well, he knows now.
He knows now, exactly. Right.
Wow. Well, I had a great time, man. It was a fantastic conference. You guys did an amazing job of setting everything up, and Justin and Joy, of course, running behind the scenes, doing stuff, and the catering was fantastic. I have to say.
Yeah, it was really good food.
Especially, I'm trying to be more of a vegetarian type of diet, which is always difficult when you're traveling.
Yes.
But I guess one of the main chef of the catering service was also vegetarian. So Nathan Reynolds, myself, and a few others were like, yes, this was really, really nice. And what I really liked about it also was having, and I think any conference organizers out there that might be listening should take note of this, is to set up a speaker only or speaker and crew, let's say, because you had the audio video crew and everything. Set up a room just for the crew and the speakers for at least one meal. If you're having two, it's great too. But because that's the only time I ever get a chance to really hang out with and talk to the other speakers, because we're either preparing for our lecture, we're doing a lecture, or we're manning our tables, or just mingling with the audience and answering questions and stuff. So we never get a chance to hang out, and that was so cool to be able to sit down and to challenge each other, ask each other's questions. I'm still not sold on the Lunar Sabbath thing, but it was good. I had a good conversation with Denny and
Denny and Diane.
We're still having some email dialogue. I saw that I haven't had a chance to respond to her, but she sent me a response email. But it was good. We had I call it a Yabbit game session.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. So thank you again for all that you guys did to make it such a pleasurable experience for everybody.
Yeah, no, it was my kids that were mainly doing all of the effort, and so I'm grateful, and they were able to. And I thank all the volunteers, and all the speakers and all the people that came out. I thought it was a most incredible conference as well, and that you're right. Being able to share meal and dialogue, and of course we don't all agree on everything. I think mainly, most people disagree with just about everything I teach, and so
I can relate to that. So
right, exactly. Yeah, like I introduced you, I think we're the two most hated people in the alternative truth movement, and so yeah.
Did you ever get a final number, like how many people attended?
I think Joyce said that there were 200 plus in attendance.
Well, that's great, man. Considering the times we're living in and the lockdowns and everything, and you had a bunch of people that canceled and did it virtually, so you probably would have had 300 to 500 people there or something if it wasn't.
Yeah, it was in excess of 300. I don't know exactly the final count, but a lot of people did donate, and even their Guidestones tickets, and so that made possible others being able to come, and these are certainly weird times. I was well pleased by the turnout and the interaction and all of our being able to share time and space, over the meals and discussion, and I thought it was great. Yeah, it was a really personable family type experiment, and a lot of because you are very well familiar, and even Denny and Diane, they have great respect for you and your work. But a lot of the other speakers, this was even their first opportunity to present and to meet others in this kind of an atmosphere. And so it was nice to have some new voices, and to also, to be able to reiterate some of the themes and some of the concepts that you and I and others have been covering for a very long time, because
Mm-hmm.
it's important, because there are a lot of new listeners and a lot of new, as far as interest in the things that we talk about. And certainly, the revelation of biblical cosmology, I think, is very important, as we emphasize with regard to the coming reign of the Antichrist and the strong delusion, and childhood's end, and things of that nature, which
Mm-hmm.
are coming every day more prevalent in the mainstream media.
Yeah, absolutely. Has the conference been archived anywhere? Or is it accessible to anybody, or is there a streaming option? Or
They are doing that now. I can send you the links to the live stream, though, but they are separating the presentations, and they're going to do it in order. And they're just uploaded today. Justin's presentation, as far as the first, the opening, and so I believe that it will progress from here on out. And so hopefully within a couple days or so, everything else should be available. But tomorrow I will go ahead and send you the link to the full-on live streams, and so you can at least have access and check out all that.
yeah, very cool. So this is all gonna be on your channel.
Yep, Zen Garcia, as far as the YouTube channels, and I'm sure he'll put them up on Endeavor Freedom as well. So
Okay. Well, so if you guys missed the conference, stay tuned. It's going to be uploaded soon. So expect to see that up on Zen's YouTube channel in the near future. All right, man. Well, I was trying to go back and see where we left off on the last broadcast that we did, and best I can tell, let me open up my PDF here, was I think we got through chapter 8 of Jasher and through chapter 10 of Jubilees. And, and I believe we have Genesis 12 still on tap. So I think we're trying to catch up in the extra biblical text to what is covered in Genesis 12. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes, and I was actually at some point, and I'll follow up with your lead, but I was going to share the story of Nimrod and Abraham, and his attempt to purge him in the fire, which is a story that is mentioned in the Targum, but not very well familiar to King James only readers. And so that's an extra part of the story which a lot of people are not familiar, and I think it would benefit for them to hear it.
Sure. So I think the setup for that might be in these chapters, picking up in chapter 9 of Jasher. So maybe I can start there.
All right.
And then when we get to the parallel of that, we can have the Targum. You can do the Targum version.
Yeah, I've got that open as well.
Okay, let me, for those watching on YouTube, switch over there to Joshua chapter 9. And Haran, the son of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot. And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. And in those days Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, as the king and his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram. And this, for the people who don't remember, when Abram was born, there was some sort of activity in the stars that the Magi saw, and they flipped out and they interpreted it as this child that was born of Terah would be the undoing of Nimrod. So Nimrod's like, okay, yeah, you're going to have to kill your child here. And so Terah pulled a fast one, took a baby, I think, from a nursemaid or something, and gave that child, and then hid Abram away in a cave. So that's what's going on there. And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instruction of the Lord and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem his son for a long time. And Abram was in Noah's house 39 years. And Abram knew the Lord from 3 years old, and he went in the ways of the Lord until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the Lord, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his god, gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. And the king and all his servants, and Terah with all his household, were then the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. And Terah had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly. And every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offerings to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of the Lord, and they thus made every man his god, but they forsook the Lord who had created them. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew the Lord, for they served each man his own god, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew the Lord in those days. And Abram, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. And the Lord gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and were of no avail. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said unto himself, Surely now this sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him will I serve. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual. Abram said within himself, Surely this cannot be God. And Abram still continued to speak within himself, Who is he who made the heavens and the earth? And who created upon earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, north, south, and east, and he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him, and he said, Surely this is the God who created the whole earth, as well as man. And behold, these his servants are gods around him. And Abram served the moon, and prayed to it all that night. And in the morning, when it was light, and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that the Lord God had made upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, Surely these are not gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of God. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew the Lord and his ways, and he served the Lord all the days of his life. And all that generation forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. And all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Put, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan with their families. And they said to each other, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching heaven, and we will make ourselves famed, so that we may reign upon the whole earth, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. And they all went before the king, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. And all the families assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men, and they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build the city and the tower, and they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk, and they journeyed there, and they dwelt there. And they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower that they had imagined to complete. And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into heaven. And all these people and all the families divided themselves in 3 parts. The first said, We will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building. And when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower, and on account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it until those who went up had completed a full year. And after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus was it done daily. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. And the Lord knew their thoughts, and it came to pass, when they were building, they cast the arrows toward the heavens, and all the arrows fell upon them filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, Surely we have slain all those that are in heaven. For this was from the Lord, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily, until many days and years were elapsed. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor. And they did so unto them. And from that day following, they forgot each other, each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. And the Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, We will ascend to heaven and serve our gods, became like apes and elephants. And those who said, We will smite the heaven with arrows, the Lord killed them, one man through the hand of his neighbor. And the 3rd division of those who said, We will ascend to heaven and fight against him, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. And those who were left amongst them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babel, for there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. And as to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof. And a fire also descended from heaven and burnt another third. And the other third is left to this day. And it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. So that completes the reading of the Jasher account of the Tower of Babel. I didn't catch that before, but again, this is a testimony to the size of this thing, that the third part that is left, 1/3 was burnt up by fire, 1/3 was swallowed up in the earth, so that left a third of the building, and it took 3 days' walk to go around the circumference of the remaining third.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And the Jasher account is really an incredible account because of the confirmation that you receive from a lot of the extra biblical manuscripts as well. So yeah, I love the Jasher as far as the depth of all of the details and the depictions that it gives according to the stories.
Yeah, and I didn't catch it before. I've talked about this in conferences and I've read this a few times, but there's 4 divisions here. So you have the 3 divisions that had plans to do something, and so the ones that he said that they were going to go into heaven and serve our gods. So they had made all kinds of freaky looking gods. He made them like apes and elephants. We talked about this in previous broadcasts. I think that's probably where, like the Hindu gods, because they have millions of
Ganesha.
Yeah, Ganesha and Hanuman. Hanuman being the ape man, and Ganesha being the elephant man. It makes you wonder. I've been to India. I've seen the gods and stuff that they have there, and there are all kinds of crazy stuff. So, it makes you wonder if, like, this is a third of the people, there, or maybe if it's not a third, it may be a quarter of the people, because you see those are made like apes and elephants. So we had 600,000 men. So at least 25% of them, if not a third, became like apes and elephants, and presumably perhaps some of the other gods as well, hybrids. So that's one. And then the other says that we will smite him. Those who planted to kill God, he killed them through their own hands. It looks like they were killing each other off. And then those who said we will ascend to heaven and fight against him, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. And then you have this other group here. So apparently there was a group of people who, of the 600,000, had made this plot. Then there are other ones that I guess are just worker bees, You know,
Uh-huh.
maybe they weren't part of the plot, but they were part of the building and whatnot. Because it says, and those who were left amongst them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building.
Uh-huh.
So you either have, you know, thirds or it's quarters.
Right. I think, the conspirators are the ones that, scattered after they saw the judgment that was coming upon them. And it kind of represents even the way that the New World Order works now, that at the highest levels, those that are in the know, they are plotting and planning and writing the protocols and determining the agenda for how they're going to, pull off the New World Order and world government and all of that. And then there's mostly those that are serving them, the agent provocateurs and those kind of individuals that make it happen.
Yep. And with that, we will go to break, and then you can read the Targum account if you want when we come back from that.
All right.
Discover the extraordinary powers of intuitive healing with pain transmutation, a method of holistic healing for the human soul, body, mind, and emotions. If you are looking for answers and a deep understanding of how to help yourself and the people around you to live a happier, healthier life, this is the right place for you. Learn how to read your soul's history in the Akashic Records. Remove negative energy attachments from your astral body and start the process of inner and outer pain transmutation. Join Pain Transmutation Community to get started on the path of intuitive healing. Change your energetic state, manifest new and exciting experiences, re-energize your life, and build inspiring connections with others in our community.
Hey folks, guess what the #1 phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites. It's dowsing for buried treasure and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and I'm joined with my co-host, Zen Garcia. And in the previous segment there, I read from the book of Jasher, and up through the up to the point of the Tower of Babel incident. I was looking during the break at chapters 10 and 11, which look really interesting. So I'd like to see if we can get through chapters 10 and 11, and Jubilees 11 is where we get into some interesting stuff too. So I'm not sure that any of this touches on the furnace issue yet, but what do you want to look at this point?
I'm going to read from what's called the Writings of Abraham. It goes into his childhood and
Cool.
the stars, and
nice.
kind of connects with that story first.
What I like about that is you could see, like, I kind of look at this from a God's eye view. It's like he's down there going, who made this place? Maybe it's the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think it's the sun. Maybe it's the moon. Maybe it's the moon and the stars are... No, that ain't it. Like, I could see God just kind of sitting back going, yeah, I like this guy. He's asking the right questions.
Right. All right, the Writings of Abraham, chapter 22. Now my father Terah took many wives and begat many children. And when he was 65 years of age, he took to wife Amthalo, the daughter of Cornebo, the son of Serug. And she was a young woman of 15 years. And when Terah was 70 years old, and his wife Amthalo conceived and bare him a son, whom he named Abram, which in interpretation is exalted father, for he said, Nimrod hath raised me on high over all his hosts, wherefore my seed shall reign as gods forever. Now this prophecy he spake, not knowing that it was of the Lord God. On the night that I was born, there were great signs in the heavens. And when Nimrod's astrologers saw them, they were astonished. And they spake evil of me to the king, saying that surely I should overthrow his kingdom. Wherefore they counseled the king to purchase me of my father, that they might slay me and thus frustrate the plans of God. King Nimrod thereupon sent for my father Terah, and spake unto him of the words of the astrologers, and asked for his son in return for a great sum of gold and silver. But the Spirit of the Lord wrought upon my father, that he was loath to give me up to the king. On the night that I was born, a son, who was also born unto one of my father's concubines, and this child my father took unto the king, and the king slew him in my stead, for thus had God ordained that I might grow up to serve him, the only wise and true God, and strive to establish his order in the earth all my days. Thus was my life saved. But my father Terah, and he took me with my mother Amthalo and my nurse Edna unto a cave hidden in the mountains some distance from the city of Ur, where he secreted us and visited us each month at the new moon. For my father thus informed the king that he went each month on the new moon to a spot sacred to his family deity. For in the kingdom of Nimrod each man worshipped gods of his own make, gods of wood and stone, each after the imagination of his own heart. Thus did I dwell in the cave with my mother Amthalo and my nurse Edna, and I knew no other man save my father Terah and my elder brothers Haran and Nahor, who accompanied my father on his visits. When I was 3 years of age, the Lord visited me in a dream at the night, and he said unto me, Abram. And I said, Here am I. And he said unto me, Abram, I am the God of thy fathers Peleg and Shem and Noah. It is I who preserved thy life when the wicked king Nimrod would have destroyed thee, for I softened the heart of thy father, that he should hide thee away. This I did, for I have a mighty work for thee to do in establishing mine order upon the earth. And verily I say unto thee, I, the end, through thee shall this wicked Nimrod be destroyed from off the face of the earth. Behold, thou shalt remain in this cave with thy mother and thy nurse for yet 7 years, and at the end of that time thou shalt depart, and I will send mine angel to guide thee unto the city of thy father Noah, where thou shalt be instructed in the way of life. And from that time forth the Lord instructed me often in dreams of the night, that mine mind was open to the ways of his kingdom. When I was 10 years of age, I departed from the cave by night, while my mother and my nurse slept, and the angel of God met me and led me to the city of Shalom, where Noah and his son Shem dwelt, and no man knew where I was. And I dwelt with Noah and Shem for 39 years, being instructed in all the ways of the Most High God, and finding great happiness and peace and rest therein. I sought for the blessing of the fathers, and I received, under the direction of Noah and Shem, those instructions whereby I might enter into the order of the ancients. And I became a rightful heir and high priest, and holding the right belonging to the fathers. For I was ushered into the church of the firstborn, and tasted of the fruits of the heavenly life. In my 15th year, Father Shem called me into his presence and instructed me to return to the house of my father. For there were many there now who were seeking after light and truth, for they had seen the foolishness of worshipping idols and of wood and of stone, but they knew not where to find the true God. And Father Shem blessed me, saying, Blessed art thou, Abram, of the Most High God, for he hath looked upon thee and found thine heart right before him. For this cause the Most High shall visit thee, and thou shalt stand at the head, and be the father of a multitude. For many nations shall spring forth from thy loins. Behold, in thy father's house dwelleth she, to whom the promise belonged. For she is a princess in the house of the Most High, and shall reign as a queen over thy posterity forever. Seek after her, and take her to wife, for she will be the mother of the promised seed. The blessings of the God of Noah, attend thee, my son, as thou journeyest on thy way. From this time forth thou shalt be a wanderer in the earth, until thy seed shall come to inherit the land by the power of God and the sword of his might. Be fruitful, faithful always, preach the truth in the soberness, and be valiant in the cause of God, and thou shalt be blessed forevermore. Amen. With this blessing resting upon me, I gathered together my family, for I had taken 7 wives in the city of Shalom, who had borne me 50 daughters. And although I had no sons of mine own flesh, yet I had adopted 12 sons of those who were faithful to the order of the ancients. And foremost among them was Eleazar of Damascus, who had come to the city of Shalom seeking after the blessing of the fathers, and had remained as my son. Him I appointed as steward over all I possessed for this journey, for he stood as mine heir, for I loved him as my son and brother. But Father Shem said unto me, Eleazar is a good and righteous man, and he shall be greatly blessed in time and in eternity. But he shall not be thine heir. Who shall be thine heir? Who shall take in the house of thy father? For she is ordained to be thy queen of queens, and the mother of thine heir. Wherefore, as I have said, I gathered together my wives and my daughters and my adopted sons and their wives and children, and I said unto them, Hear my words, beloved, and hearken unto my speech, for I have been sent with a mission unto the house of my father in the land of Shinar, to gather out of the pure in heart who are seeking after the true God. Gather together all your goods, and make your tents in which to dwell, and saddle your asses to travel upon, for the Most High God hath declared that we shall be wanderers upon the earth from this time forth, until our seed shall come in to inherit this land by the power of God and the sword of his might. And then commanded they their preparations, and on the appointed day all was in readiness for our departure. And when Father Shem came forth to bless us, Father Noah came also with him. Now Father Noah dwelt in the temple in the heart of the city of Shalom, and seldom came out of the holy place, for I had never seen him without its sacred precincts. But he came forth at this time, and lifted up his hands and blessed us in the name of the Most High God. And we departed from his house. We journeyed slowly for the sake of the women and the children, and we journeyed upon the Sabbath day, nor we journeyed not upon the Sabbath day, nor upon any of the holy days, for we thought it better to worship the Lord our God according to the pattern of heaven than to proceed rapidly on our way. And we did know that the Lord prospered us in our journey and protected us from the power of all of our enemies, because we did faithfully serve him and worship before him throne according to the divine pattern. But at length we did arrive in the land of Shinar, at the city of Now the size of this city was immense. Its buildings were grand and beautiful, with gardens upon the rooftops and rivers of water running down from the level to level. The streets were wide and smooth, and the inhabitants wealthy, dwellings in luxury. Merchant caravans continually entered and left her gates, and the great of all nations came here to pay homage to the might of King Nimrod. Nevertheless, the wealth of this great city was built upon sin, for the people served many idol gods and offered upon their altars men, women, and children after the same manner of the Egyptians. And they had numerous slaves who were kept down in bondage and poverty, and were driven like dumb beasts to provide the luxury in which their masters dwelt. Behold, the inhabitants of the city did delight in whoredom and adultery and murder and all manner of evil, whereby they might get gain. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. Nevertheless, he did let them go, on that they might be fully ripened in iniquity before the fullness of his wrath should fall upon them. All of these things did the Lord God show unto me in a dream on the night before we entered into the city of And he said unto me, Abram, this city is vile and corrupt, but in it are some few souls who have not bowed the knee to their idol gods. And it is because of their prayers that I have brought you here, that they might be taught to worship the true God after the order of heaven, and be led out from wickedness and bondage. Wherefore go into thy father's house, and for thy mother hath sorrowed for thee these many years, and I have softened the heart of thy father towards thee, that he shall make thee welcome and protect thee against the anger of the king, such that thou shalt be able to accomplish thy mission. Behold, Abram, I am the Lord God of thy fathers Shem and Noah, and all the righteous fathers back to Adam. Wherefore I will remain with thee, and confirm upon thee all the blessings of the fathers, that thou shalt stand at the head of a multitude. Amen. In the morning before entering the city, I gathered my family together, consisting of my 7 wives, 50 daughters, 12 adopted sons, and 350 men servants, whom Shem had set with their families, being in all 6,370 souls. And I said unto them, Behold, the great city is steeped in wickedness and sin, for the secret combinations which was from the beginning doth hold her sway. Wherefore we shall remain here under the direction of Eleazar, while I go alone into the city, into my father's house. For the Lord God of Shem and of Noah hath promised me that the will protect me against the anger of the king, that I shall be able to accomplish my mission. I led my family in prayer before the Lord, kissed them all, and departing from them, entered into the city. Being led by the Spirit of the Lord, I found my father's house, and entered the gate, addressed the guard who was standing there, saying, Behold, I am Abram, son of Terah, who hath spent these 40 years in the house of Shem. Take me now to my father. The guard stood as one dumbfounded, knowing what to make of such a greeting, but at length called a boy whom he dispatched to locate my father. At length the lad returned, followed closely by my father, who was greatly surprised to see me, but who recognized me as his son by the inspiration of the Spirit of the Lord. But this time my arrival hath caused great excitement throughout my father's household, which was very large, and my mother, having heard of my coming, hastened to place where we were, weeping and rejoicing, for she had thought that I had wandered from the cave and been slain by wild beasts in the wilderness. At length she led me away to her chamber to talk with me, and I told her of all that had transpired with me since my leaving the cave, and my being led by the angel to the city of Shalom, of being instructed under the direction of Shem, and of the increase of my family, and of the mercies of the true God of heaven exercised in my behalf. I talked to her of the futility of worshiping idols of wood and stone made by men's hands, which have no power in them, or of the order of the ancients, which was preserved in the city of Shalom under Noah and Shem, which I had been sent to proclaim in the great city of I'll just read a little bit more, and then we can move into the other one.
Okay.
My mother heard of all my words and rejoiced in them, for she was one whose heart had been turned from the worship of dumb idols to the worship of the unknown God. Moreover, a small body of like believers, numbering about 100 souls, met secretly in my father's house to worship the unseen God and pray for further light concerning his ways, among whom were my brothers Haran and his son Lot, and his daughters Milcah and Sarai, and my brother Nahor. Now when my mother had heard my words, and she bade me remain with her until evening, when the true believers were to meet in her room, Wherefore that night I met with those who had rejected the idolatry of their fathers, and they were all of the seed of those who had come out from the city of Peleg. Wherefore I rehearsed unto them all the things I had told unto my mother, and they likewise rejoiced therein. But unto my father I spake not of these things at this time, for he was yet privy to Nimrod, who was steeped in his evil ways. When I had dwelt in my father's house for 7 days, teaching the word of life unto the believers, I went unto my father as he sat in his outer court, with his servants attending to the affairs of state. And when he would hear me, I said unto him, Father, where is the God who created heaven and earth, and all the hosts of them? My father Terah answered me and said, Behold, my son, those gods who created all things are here with us in thy house. My Lord, show them to me, I pray thee, I exclaimed. Whereupon my father Terah led me into a chamber in the center of his house, where he had 12 great idol gods and numerous smaller ones. And my father said unto me, Behold, my son, these 12 great ones are rulers among the gods, and this largest one is ruler above all. And these others were their assistants in creating all things. And my father Terah bowed down and worshipped before his idol gods, and we departed from them. And when I departed from the presence of my father, I went unto my mother and said unto her, My mother, there is a great evil in this place, for my father keepeth a room full of idols in the center of his house, which thing is contrary to the commandments of God. Wherefore the wrath of God shall not depart from this house until they are destroyed. Let one of the young men be sent therefore to fetch a kid of the goats, and make therefore savory meat. For therewith shall I destroy these idols, in which is neither life nor power. My mother therefore summoned one of the young men who was with her in the house, and sent me to fetch a kid of the goats, wherefore she made savory meat. And when it was prepared, I took the savory meat from her, and went into the room where my father kept his gods, and prayed there unto the Lord my God, saying, O Lord, God of Shem and Noah, look upon me here, in my weakness and strength mine arm, and that I may destroy these false gods, and give me the wisdom and strength to go through all that follows, and endureth unto the end service unto my God. And when I had said these words, the Spirit of the Lord fell upon me, even the spirit of prophecy, and I was led to exclaim, Woe unto my father and the wicked and corrupt people, among whom he dwelleth, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, for they serve idols of wood and stone, the workmanship of their own hands, which neither eat nor smell nor hear nor speak, for there is no power in them, and those who serve them shall likewise be powerless to escape when the wrath of God shall overtake them in the day they think not. All right, I'll stop there, because most people should be familiar with the story of how he fed. He used the savory meat, and had the one chief idol destroy all the others, or at least that was the story that he told his father. And then his father admitted, that of course the idols couldn't do that because they can't move, speak, or act. And in that way, he was able to get his father to admit that the idols were worthless, and that worship of them was also worthless. But this book, goes into more detail on those stories. And of course, it's has things that I don't necessarily jive with as far as what I've learned from other manuscripts, but it does provide an interesting perspective on some of the other stories, as will the Chronicle of Jeremiel that I'll read from after you go through whatever you want. And it's about the story of the contention between Abraham and Nimrod and the fiery oven.
Man, that's fascinating. Do you know how far back does the writings of Abraham date? Do you know?
1860 something. They were supposedly found in an Egyptian sarcophagus or a tomb, and then they were translated back in 1861 is what I believe
so how old does the Egyptian tomb date back to, do you know?
Oh, I have no clue.
That's fascinating.
But
the writings of
supposedly
Abram.
it's supposed to be written, by Abraham, himself, or at least that's the story of the manuscript.
Ah, wow. I mean, that's fascinating. I was trying to take some notes on it, and I saw that you were sharing it on Skype, so I shared it on YouTube also. So
yeah, I'll share some of the manuscripts.
Yeah, it was good to read along with you. So I know that Jasher talks about the 40 years with Noah and Shem.
Right.
So it talks about that. In the writings of Abraham, he kept talking about wanting to be a part of the order of the ancients, which I would say
the firstborn.
I believe is the Melchizedek order. He was.
It is most certainly.
Yeah, he was calling it the order of the ancients. But wow, 7 wives with 50 daughters.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. Yeah. And I've never seen that, actually spoken of anywhere else, but it does attribute some of the other ancient prophets like Noah and others as having other wives that I've never heard of as well.
Well, I mean, it would make sense given the time period, but
right.
Is that the only text that you're aware of that talks about that? Or is there, I mean, it's just given sort of
as far as the order of the ancients.
No. The 7 wives and 50 daughters.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I've never
seen it anywhere else.
The only ones that I'm familiar with are Sarai and Hagar, and then there was Keturah afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, those are the 3 that I'm familiar with regard to Abram's wives.
Man, I'd really love to track down the dating of the tomb that was found in Egypt.
Right.
Because that's fascinating. I mean, it is. There would be in an Egyptian tomb the story of Abram. So presumably that would go back to the time of Joseph, I would think.
Right. And from what I understand, the Egyptians also attribute astrology and the knowledge of the stars to Abram, to Abraham, and that he was the teacher of the constellations and the order and the breakdown of them, and that information was revealed to him. And according to the Assatur, that information, of course, finds its source with Adam and the books of creation that were given unto him. The book of the signs, the book of the wars of the Lord, the book of the generations of man, the book of astrology, and there was one other I can't remember right now. But these are all portions, as well as the book of Enoch, the testimonies and the different segments. They seem to align accordingly to these kind of breakdowns as far as the books of creation.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if what is it? It's the Colburn Bible. Didn't that come out of Egypt also?
Yes, yeah, that's said to have been preserved amongst the Egyptian and the Babylonians, and also the the Celts and the Druidic priesthoods as well. So it preserves the other side of it, as far as the pagans and those that like the story of the Exodus is from the point of view of the Egyptians in that particular manuscript, and it brings forth, in great detail the story of what's called the destroyer, which I believe in the Bible is spoken of as wormwood.
So I'm just wondering, I mean, if there's any legitimacy to the 7 wives, because that was of the house of Shem, right? According to that, so these would be, wow. I mean, 7 wives of the house of Shem prior to him taking Sarai of the house of Terah, who was an idol worshiper. So, I mean, we know that the descendants of Abram are blessed, period.
Right.
I mean,
exactly,
it doesn't matter, like, who the mother is. And we know that the Isaac was the chosen.
Yes.
He was the or I should say the promised one.
Yes.
But the seed of Abraham is blessed, period.
Right.
So, you have these 50 daughters. It's interesting that he didn't have any sons, and that he had 12 adopted sons. We later find through Jacob that, of course, Jacob has 12 sons. But it's interesting that you have sort of a preview of that with Abram having, maybe perhaps prophetically, 12 adopted sons. He's like, well, maybe I could take Eleazar, and he's like, yeah, he's a cool dude, but he's not the one for you.
Right.
He's desperately looking for the man child to pass on
Inheritance.
Inheritance too. Of course, he's only 40 years old at a time when people were living 200 plus years of age, so he's already thinking well ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be 40 years old, have 7 wives and 50 daughters and 12 adopted sons already. I'm like,
right,
dude, like, wow, man.
But if God is trying to make of him a tribe, and is wanting him to have this seed to appoint and to number like the sky.
Well, yeah, that's thank you for bringing me back around to it. That's what my thought was, is that we think of his seed being numbered as the stars when we just think typically Israel, the descendants of Jacob, and by extension I would say through adoption the Gentiles that are grafted in, but then just of his actual seed. Wow, man, that's a lot. Well, here we are going to break.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
Police officers shot in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. 2 officers wounded during Wednesday night protests.
Both officers are currently undergoing treatment at University Hospital. One is in alert and stable. The other officer is currently undergoing surgery.
That's Louisville's interim police chief Robert Schroeder. The shootings during protests over a grand jury's decision not to charge police officers with Breonna Taylor's shooting death back in March. One officer was indicted on wanton endangerment charges. Angry protests have flared several times during the evening.
Police over and over again getting on the loudspeaker saying that this is an unlawful assembly. People are breaking that curfew. They are still gathering. They are yelling profanities at police. Officers are heavily armed. They have on their riot gear and their crowd control gear.
Fox's Matt Finn reports a curfew has been ordered but is being ignored by many people. Scores have been arrested for defying police orders to disperse. The city of Louisville has paid an out-of-court settlement to Breonna Taylor's family for her death during a police drug raid. A Senate report shows concerns were raised over Hunter Biden's involvement with a Ukrainian energy firm while his dad was vice president.
The 87-page report says in 2015, 2 senior State Department officials raised concerns to Vice President Joe Biden's office and even Mr. Biden himself about the perception of a conflict of interest regarding Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board. Quote, despite the efforts of these individuals, their concerns appear to have fallen on deaf ears. The Biden campaign says the document is hardcore right-wing conspiracy theory. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer blasted the 2 Republican chairmen who led this report.
Fox's Mike Emanuel. Big losses on Wall Street Wednesday. The Dow dropped 525 points. NASDAQ off 330. America is listening to Fox News.
Into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project, and once again, this show is flying by. We're in the second hour already. Man.
Right.
Yeah, so right before the break in the previous segment, we're talking about the writings of Abraham and the fact that he had, according to that text anyway, 7 wives and 50 daughters. And I was just thinking, and 12 adopted sons, but I mean, of actual seed of Abraham. 50 daughters, it would be a fascinating study if that's true, to see where they went and into what clans and tribes and families they married.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to see what might be out there.
Yeah, that would be a lot to track down.
Ooh,
and I wonder if there is, anything that gives kind of confirming witness to some of this. Because, like you made mention as far as Jasher, the story of Abram spending 39 years with Noah and Shem is revealed in the Jasher account as it is in this particular account. And so, it's just interesting how some of the details like that overlap in different manuscripts.
Yeah, for sure. Does that manuscript say what happened to the 12 adopted sons, 7 wives, and 50 daughters after he hooks up with Sarah?
Well, I don't recall exactly, but I do believe that the believers join them when they actually leave out. And I'm not sure if, I know Terah, his father, joins him to go to the land of Haran, but I can't remember precisely if they all make that journey and travel with him. I know that Lot is, in part here of the believers that are meeting with his mother, and that they do join to leave with him after, he shows the idol worship to be futile.
Yeah, the other thing that caught my attention was that they were concerned about the Sabbath and the holy days, meaning they were already known to Abraham, and presumably also, to Noah and Shem, which just shows that, yes, Moses finally put it down in print for us, but they've been in existence going all the way back to Adam.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think also, like you'll see in this story about how Passover was recognized and observed by Abraham, and that some of the stories even of Isaac and the whole incident of the angel staying his hand, that was on Passover. And
oh wow,
yeah, and so some of those stories it shows you that the feast days and the Sabbath, that these things didn't just begin with Moshe, that they were, they go all the way back to Adam. And even in the first book of Adam and Eve, it declares that Cain and Abel, when they came forth to make their offerings, that was also on Passover.
Yeah, that is definitely a fascinating study for sure. So, do you want to keep going with what you were talking about, or should I get us caught up in Jasher and Jubilees?
Yeah, you go ahead and catch up, because I don't want to dominate with just this manuscript. And then afterwards, when you get to the story of the contention with Nimrod and Abraham, I'll share that account from the Chronicles of Jeremiah.
Okay, I'll slide over to Jubilees then, and a second here. Pick up in chapter 11, because I believe we got through chapter 10 last time. So, Jubilees chapter 11, and in the 35th Jubilee, in the 3rd week, in the 1st year thereof, speaking of that, Jubilees, there was a guy that came up to me as we were wrapping up and taking everything down at the conference. I don't know if he spoke to you about it, but he had all these spreadsheets where he had...
Yes, he did.
All the Jubilee...
I told him I'd get with him later because I didn't have a chance to actually even look at them, but I did tell him to contact me. And I told him definitely to speak with you because, that's your kind of thing. And I thought, who better to kind of look at that than you really.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, there were pages and pages. He was trying to talk quickly because everybody we're getting ready to go to dinner and people were waiting on me and the restaurant was about to close, and so we're like, yeah, okay. But yeah, he sat down and I want to say it had at least a dozen pages or more. It was all like Excel spreadsheets, but like very detailed stuff. So I guess he used text like the Book of Jubilees and then continued it through the biblical narrative. So I do have did he give you a copy of it?
No, but again, I'm hoping that he will contact me and that we can examine further the work that he's done, because I applaud the efforts of everybody out there that is trying to make sense of the timeline and the narrative and to break it down in a visual manner and to do these kind of depictions, because I certainly don't have the skill set for it, and those of you that do, it's a great benefit for others to be able to visually look at even the lives, where they end and who was alive during what time and all that. I think it's very beneficial.
Yeah, brother, if you're out there and you're listening, I apologize, I don't remember your name, but I do have it in my luggage. I brought that back, and so if you happen to hear this broadcast, get a hold of Zen. Maybe you guys can do a show together or something.
Yeah, that would be great, actually.
That'd be cool. All right, Jubilees 11. And in the 35th Jubilee, in the third week, in the first year thereof, Reu took to himself a wife, and her name was Orah, the daughter of the son of Kesed, and she bare him a son, and he called his name Siroi, in the 7th year of this week in this Jubilee. And the sons of Noah began to war on each other, to take captive and slay each other, and to shed the blood of men on the earth, and to eat blood, and to build strong cities and walls and towers. And individuals began to exalt themselves above the nation, and to found the beginnings of kingdoms, and to go to war people against people, and nation against nation, and city against city. And all began to do evil, and to acquire arms, and to teach their sons war. And they began to capture cities, and to sell male and female slaves. And the son of Kesed, built the city of Arah in the Chaldees, and called its name after his own name, and the name of his father. And they made for themselves molten images, and they worshipped each the idol, the molten image which they had made for themselves. And they began to make graven images and unclean simulacra, and malignant spirits assisted and seduced them into committing transgression and uncleanness. And the prince Mastema exerted himself to do all this, and he sent forth other spirits, those which were put under his hand, to do all manner of wrong and sin and all manner of transgression, to corrupt and destroy, and to shed blood upon the earth. For this reason he called the name of Siroi Surug, for every one turned to do all manner of sin and transgression. And he grew up and dwelt in Ur of the Chaldees, near to the father of his wife's mother, and he worshipped idols, and he took to himself a wife in the 36th Jubilee, in the 5th week, in the first year thereof, and her name was Melka, the daughter of Caber, the daughter of his father's brother. And she bare him Nahor in the first year of this week, and he grew and dwelt in Ur of the Chaldees, and his father taught him the researches of the Chaldees to divine and augur according to the signs of heaven. And in the 37th Jubilee, in the 6th week, in the first year thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Ijaska, the daughter of Nestag of the Chaldees. And she bare him Terah in the 7th year of this week. And the prince Mastema sent ravens and birds to devour the seed which was sown in the land, in order to destroy the land and rob the children of men of their labors. Before they could plow in the seed, the ravens picked it from the surface of the ground. And for this reason he called his name Terah, because the ravens and the birds reduced them to destitution and devoured their seed. And the years began to be barren, owing to the birds, and they devoured all the fruit of the trees from the trees, and it was only with great effort that they could save a little of all the fruit of the earth in those days. It sounds like I can relate to these people. Same ravens and rabbits and birds and bugs. And in the 39th Jubilee, in the second week in the first year, Terah took to himself a wife, and her name was Edna, the daughter of Abram, the daughter of Abram. So one of the 50 daughters, I guess. So Jubilees is sort of backing this up without saying it.
Yeah, very interesting.
Because we don't see Abram married to anybody. That's certainly not Sarah or Sarai. Edna, the daughter of Abram, the daughter of his father's sister. And in the 7th year of this week, she bare him a son, and she called his name Abram. Wait a minute. Edna, the daughter of Abram, bearing Terah. Maybe there's another guy named Abram. Let me read that again. Terah took to himself a wife, and her name was Edna, the daughter of Abram, the daughter of his father's sister. So the daughter of Terah's father's sister produced... Wait a minute. It's so weird the way it's worded here. Terah took to himself a wife, and her name was Edna. So Terah's wife is Edna, the daughter of Abram, the daughter of his father's sister. And in the 7th year of this week, she bare him a son and called his name Abram by the name of the father of his mother. Okay, so that's not... So this is the Abram that we're familiar with.
Son.
So this is a second Abram.
Yeah,
apparently.
Right.
Interesting.
Seems like.
Yeah. For he had died before his daughter had conceived a son.
Very good.
And the child began to understand the errors of the earth, that all went astray after graven images and after uncleanness. And his father taught him writing, and he was 2 weeks of years old, and he separated himself from his father that he might not worship idols with him. And he began to pray to the Creator of all things that he might save him from the errors of the children of men, and that his portion should not fall into error after the uncleanness and vileness. And the seed time came for the sowing of seed upon the land, and they all went forth together to protect their seed against the ravens. And Abram went forth with those that went, and the child was a lad of 14 years. And a cloud of ravens came to devour his seed, and Abram ran to meet them before they settled on the ground, and cried to them before they settled on the ground and devoured the seed, and said, Descend not, return to the place whence ye came. And they proceeded to turn back. And he caused the clouds of ravens to turn back that day 70 times, and of all the ravens throughout all the land where Abram was, there settled there not so much as one. And all who were with him throughout all the land saw him cry out, and all the ravens turned back, and his name became great in the land of the Chaldees. And there came to him this year all those that wished to sow, and he went with them until the time of sowing ceased, and they sowed their land. And that year they brought enough grain home and eat and were satisfied. And in the first year of the 5th week, Abram taught those who made implements for oxen, the artificers of wood, and they made a vessel above the ground, facing the frame of the plow, in order to put the seed therein. And the seed fell down therefrom upon the share of the plow, and was hidden in the earth, and they no longer feared the ravens. So he's the inventor of the plow, I guess. And after this manner they made vessels above the ground on all the frames of the plows, and they sowed and tilled all the land according to Abram commanded them, and they no longer feared the birds. So I wonder which Abram this is talking about. If it's Abraham the elder or Abraham to become Abraham here. It looks like it's talking about
the regular Abraham.
Regular Abraham to me. Okay, chapter 12. And it came to pass in the 6th week, in the 7th year thereof, that Abram said to Terah his father, saying, Father. And he said, Behold, here I am, my son. And he said, What help and profit have we from those idols which thou dost worship, and before which thou dost bow thyself? For there is no spirit in them, for they are dumb forms and misleading of the heart. Worship them not. Worship the God of heaven, who causes the rain and the dew to descend on the earth, and does everything upon the earth, and has created everything by his word, and all life is from before his face. Why do you worship things that have no spirit in them? For they are the work of men's hands, and on your shoulders do you bear them, and you have no help from them. But they are a great cause of shame to those who make them, and a misleading of the heart to those who worship them. Worship them not. And his father said unto him, I also know it, my son, but what shall I do with the people who have made me to serve before them? And if I tell them the truth, they will slay me, for their soul cleaves to them to worship them and honor them. Keep silent, my son, lest they slay thee. And these words he spake to his 2 brothers, and they were angry with him, and he kept silent. And in the 40th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 7th year thereof, Abram took to himself a wife, and her name was Sarai, the daughter of his father, and she became his wife. And Haran, his brother, took to himself a wife in the 3rd year of the 3rd week, and she bare him a son in the 7th year of this week, and he called his name Lot. And Nahor, his brother, took himself a wife. And in the 60th year of the life of Abram, so Jubilees skips over the whole 40 years with Shem and Noah, apparently, because now we're already in the 60th year of his life. That is, in the 4th week, in the 4th year thereof, Abram arose by night and burned the house of the idols, and he burned all that was in the house, and no man knew it. And they arose in the night and sought to save their gods from the midst of the fire. And Haran hasted to save them, but the fire flamed over him, and he was burnt in the fire, and he died in Ur of the Chaldees before Terah his father, and they buried him in Ur of the Chaldees. And Terah went forth from Ur of the Chaldees, he and his sons, to go into the land of Lebanon, and into the land of Canaan. And he dwelt in the land of Haran, and Abram dwelt with Terah his father in Haran 2 weeks of years. And in the 6th week, in the 5th year thereof, Abram sat up throughout the night on the new moon of the 7th month to observe the stars from the evening to the morning, in order to see what would be the character of the year with regard to the rains. And he was alone as he sat and observed. And a word came into his heart, and he said, All the signs of the stars and the signs of the moon and of the sun are all in the hand of the Lord. Why do I search them out? If he desires, he causes it to rain morning and evening, and if he desires, he withholds it, and all things are in his hand. And he prayed that night and said, My God, God most high, thou art my God, and thee and thy dominion have I chosen. And thou hast created all things, and all things that are the work of thy hands. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits, who have dominion over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. And establish thou me and my seed forever, that I hate these like King James type of language here, that we go not astray from henceforth and forevermore. And he said, Shall I return unto Ur of the Chaldees, who seek my face, that I may return to them? Am I to remain here in this place? The right path before thee prosper it in the hands of thy servant, that he may fulfill it, and that I may not walk in the deceitfulness of my heart, O my God. And he made an end of speaking and praying, and behold, the word of the Lord was sent to him through me, saying, Get thee up from thy country, and from thy kindred, and from the house of thy father, unto a land which I will show thee, and shall make thee a great and numerous nation. So now we're caught up to Genesis 12 here. This is the Genesis 12 parallel. And I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be blessed in the earth, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. In fact, if you want to maybe get Genesis 12 ready.
From the Targum?
Yeah. Because we're getting ready for break here, and I'll get through this chapter. And I will be a God to thee and thy son, and to thy son's son, and to all thy seed. Fear not from henceforth, and unto all generations of the earth, I am thy God. And the Lord God said, Open his mouth and his ears, that he may hear and speak with his mouth, with the language which has been revealed. For it had ceased from the mouths of all the children of men, from the day of the overthrow of Babel. It sounds like this is where Hebrew is being reinstated here. Well, yeah, it's the next verse. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips,
Yes.
and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of the creation. So this is where we see that Hebrew is the tongue of creation. That was the original language.
Yes.
And he took the books of his fathers, and these were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them, and he began from henceforth to study them, and I made known to him that which he could not understand, and he studied them during the 6 rainy months. And it came to pass in the 7th year of the 6th week that he spoke to his father and informed him that he would leave Haran to go into the land of Canaan to see it and return to him. And Terah his father said unto him, Go in peace, may the eternal God make thy path straight. And the Lord be with thee, and protect thee from all evil, and grant unto thee grace, mercy, and favor before those who see thee. And may none of the children of men have power over thee to harm thee. Go in peace. And if thou seest a land pleasant to thy eyes to dwell in, then arise and take me to thee, and take Lot with thee, the son of Haran, thy brother, as thine own son. The Lord be with thee. And Nahor thy brother leave with me till thou returnest in peace, and we go with thee all together. So, let me shift over. Hang on a second. Got 5 minutes. I don't know if I'll get through all of Genesis 12 by then, but let me see.
I think it's pretty short.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. Hang on a second. Bible, second monitor. Okay. Genesis chapter 12. Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto the land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, Abram, and curse them that curse thee, Abram, that curses thee, and curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. So I started doing a timeline chart on this because it seems like these contradict, but they don't. You have to put them all. There's like back and forth. Like Genesis is giving you a real Cliff Note version of all this. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot did I skip the... Okay, 75 years old when he parted on Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substances that they had gathered, and the sons that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Lord appeared to Abram, and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And there was famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was fair. And the princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken unto Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake, and he had sheep and oxen, and he asses, and men servants, and maid servants, and she asses, and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me she was thy wife? Why sayest thou, she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife. Now therefore behold thy wife, take her, and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. So he goes down there, and he's afraid for his life because his wife is hot. And so he's like, yeah, say you're my sister, so they won't, do anything to me. And meanwhile, they're like giving him, all these servants and animals and everything else. And then it's like the angel of the Lord appears to Pharaoh. I think Jasher goes into this in more detail, I believe. And Pharaoh's like, whoa, what's up, dude? Get out of here. So, he lies, he goes down there, and he ends up with a fortune.
Right, yes. Uh-huh.
I'm like, wow, man, there's hope.
Right, exactly. God can do all things. Yeah, and it happens again,
And it happens again later on.
Right.
Yeah, that's why whenever I start to beat myself up, when I'm not doing everything the way I should be doing, I'm like, look at these guys. There ain't none of them that were any better than any of us, really.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because it was the thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at naturesyouth.com. naturesyouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at naturesyouth.com. That's naturesyouth.com. That's naturesyouth.com.
True initiation is an inward journey. It's a spiritual path that is totally inward. It has nothing to do with anything external to you.
I want to determine if the Grand Architect is indeed what I believe it to be, which is the artificial intelligence.
The initiatory path is one of self-discovery and self-revealing. It's not a journey that someone can hold your hand through.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you through the steps of initiation. Remember, you are divinity.
Step Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Geo.
Fridays and Saturdays,
7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and we're in the final half-hour segment of the broadcast. I'm joined with my friend and co-host, Zen Garcia. Right before the break, we're talking about, well, actually, it wasn't a total lie because she really was his half-sister.
Right,
I guess. So, I got to cut him some slack there. He was only telling a partial truth there. Right. She's my half-sister / wife. And here's my banjo chorus.
In the writings of Abraham, it goes into that story in a little more detail, and it actually, Abram is related in a dream that he should play out that scenario in that manner, because otherwise they're going to kill him and take his wife from him, to be then part of Pharaoh's harem.
So he was warned in a dream about that.
Yeah, so he was warned in a dream. And when I just looked ahead as far as the writings of Abraham as well, and from where I had left off, it goes into the story of how Abram then destroys his father's idols, and then because of that is challenged by Nimrod.
Yes.
And then Nimrod finds out that, he was the one that he thought he had slain earlier, and then that's when he puts him through the fire. So maybe next week we can actually get to that particular story.
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and read that, we could do that now.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
Because I do want to read the Jasher account also, which would parallel that. We won't get to it tonight. But maybe on your show next week we can start off with the Targum version of Genesis 12.
Sounds good.
And then I can read the Jasher account.
All right. At this time the Spirit of God fell upon me in mighty power to strengthen my arm, and picking up a hatchet which I had brought with me for that purpose, I destroyed all my father's idols, both wood and stone, by the power of God which was in me, except for the largest, in whose hand I placed the hatchet. Then going to my father, I said unto him, My father, I have seen a wondrous thing, for my mother did make me savory meat this day to offer before the gods, who created all things. And when I took the meat in unto them, they all reached forth their hands to partake thereof. When the one who is ruler above all saw their words, he being angered left the room, and returned with the hatchet, wherewith he destroyed the other gods, both wood and stone. And behold, he standeth there even now with the hatchet in his hand, and the savory meat before him. Hearing these words, my father hastened into the room of his gods, and found it even as I had said, and his anger was kindled against me. And he said, This is an idle tale thou hast told me, and false. Why hast thou done this thing, and lied unto me? These gods have no life in them to do these things, for they are wood and stone. And behold, I myself have them made by the craftsmen. Why hast thou then come into mine house to destroy my gods? The Spirit of the Lord fell upon me at this time, that I should answer my father. And I said unto him, How is it thou servest these idols of wood and stone, the handiwork of the craftsmen, in which is neither life nor power to act? Can these which cannot deliver themselves from the hatchet deliver thee from the power of the enemy? Can they hear thy prayers when thou callest upon them from out of the midst of thine afflictions? Surely it is an evil thing that thou and thy people should serve these false gods, for the Lord Jehovah, he is the God who created heaven and earth and all that is in them is, and he hath commanded all men to worship him, only to serve him all their days. Behold, your fathers in the days before the great flood worship false idols after the same evil combination into which ye have entered, and because of their perversions they were destroyed. Will ye also go on in their wickedness to bring down the wrath of the Most High God upon you, that ye too should be destroyed from under heaven? Nay, my father, but repent of this evil, and turn unto the Lord God, and live. So saying, I took the hatchet from the hands of the remaining idol, and smote him with it until he was destroyed. My father, hearing my words and seeing what I had done, increased in anger against me, and hastened from his house unto the king, for he had access to King Nimrod both day and night. And when he had entered the king's presence, he bowed down before him, and he saith unto him, My lord king, 50 years ago a man-child was born unto my wife Amthelo, and when he was 10 years old, we went on the new moon to worship our ancestral God, when my son wandered off into the desert and was lost. But he was found by the people of the desert and raised by them, and he hath recently found his way back into my house. And I have received him with honor as my son. Notwithstanding this, he did this day enter into the room of my gods, and destroy them, and hath spoken against our gods, and against that ancient order which hath been handed down from our first father, whereunto we are called. Now therefore, my lord king, send for him, that he may be judged according to our law, that this evil may be put away from among us. The king thereupon sent 3 of his mighty men, who fetched me from my father's house, and brought me before the king. And when I appeared before King Nimrod, he was seated upon his throne in all his glory, but it was as darkness to me. And his right hand sat my father Terah, and around them sat the princes and noble ones of his realm. And the king said unto me, What is this thing that thy father saith unto me, that thou didst this day enter into the room of his gods, and destroy them? And thou hast spoken against our gods, and against that ancient order which hath been handed down from our first father, whereunto we are called? I answered the king, saying, Why dost thou go on in wickedness to worship these dumb idols, in which there is no power even to save themselves? Not only this, but thou hast led others to worship them, and to enter into that order which is most abominable in the eyes of the Most High God. For your father, from whence it cometh, is the devil, and it is full of lies and blasphemies, and all manner of evil, that men should lie and murder to get gain. Why wilt thou not serve the Most High God, who created all things in heaven and on earth, who hath created these and holdeth the power to sustain thy life or to destroy thee? O foolish, ignorant, wicked king, woe shall be unto thee for ever and ever, for thou art the son of perdition, for it is he who is thy father. Thou hast corrupted the earth with thy sins, and with the sins of thy people who follow thee. It was for entering into this wicked combination to get gain that your ancestors were destroyed in the flood, when only 8 souls were saved. Wilt thou and thy people follow in their paths? Then the wrath of the Most High God will descend upon thee, to smite thee from before his face. Now put away these evil ways, and turn unto the Most High God, and serve him, that there may be hope for thee. But behold, I see that thine heart is hardened in iniquity, that there is no repentance for thee. For the evil one hath sealed thee his, wherefore all thy ways shall come to naught, and thou and thy people shall be destroyed from off the face of the earth. And then I lifted up mine hands to heaven, and I prayed, saying, O Lord God, thou who sees all the ways of the wicked, and will bring every evil deed into judgment, look upon these evil ones and destroy them, that the whole earth be not corrupted by them and brought to destruction. When the king heard my words and the prayer which I uttered, he ordered me to be cast into prison house, until he had determined what to do with me. And after 10 days the king gathered together all his counselors, and rehearsed unto them all things concerning me. And when he had rehearsed all things unto them, he asked them, saying, What judgment shall an one receive who hath reviled the king and our gods and our holy order? And they returned judgment unto him, saying, The man who revileth the kind should be hanged from a tree until he is dead. And the tree then fell to the ground, while all the people shall shout, Thus shall it befall him who revileth the king. But this man hath not only reviled the king, but also our gods and our holy order. And according to our law, such a one shall be cast into a furnace of fire, until he be consumed, that naught remain of him in the earth. Let therefore the fire be increased in the king's furnace, which is in Kasdim, where the king's bricks are made, and let this blasphemer be cast into the fire, that he be consumed. The king so commanded, and for 3 days and 3 nights was the fire preparing in Kasdim, and at the end of that time I was brought forth from the prison to be cast therein. Nevertheless, while I was in the prison, the Lord sent his angels to minister unto me, and to comfort me. And they said unto me, Fear not, Abram, for thy work is not yet finished. For thou shalt yet become the father of many nations, and thou shalt preach the gospel in far places. Even in the land of Egypt shalt thou declare the mysteries of thy God. And though they cast thee into the furnace, is not the Lord able to deliver thee therefrom? For through thy deliverance shall many be brought to bow down and worship the Lord thy God, and forsake the evils of Nimrod. Therefore I came forth from the prison confident in the power of my God, and his promise that I should be delivered from the fire. But as I came forth, the astrologers of the king looked upon me, and by the power of Satan they recognized me, for they saw me clothed in light. And they cried out unto the king, saying, O king of all the earth, surely this is the man of whom we spoke unto thee 50 years ago, that he should rise up to overthrow thy kingdom. Wherefore was he not slain? Hearing these words, the king was greatly troubled, and calling my father Terah before him, he exclaimed, Is this then thy son who was to have been slain? And what child then did I slay at his birth? Speak now the truth, and thou shalt go free. But if thou speakest not the truth, thou shalt die with thy son. And Nimrod caused my father to swear concerning the matter. And my father answered the king, saying, My lord king, I am guilty. For because of my tender feelings towards my son, I did substitute for him the son of my concubine, who was born on the same night. The king's wrath mounted, and in his anger he cried, Who advised thee to do this thing? Surely that man shall die. My father, being terrified at the king's anger, said, It was my son Haran who so advised me. Now Haran had not advised my father of anything, but the Spirit of the Lord had wrought upon my father, that he was loath to give me up to the king. Nevertheless, Haran was privy to what my father had done, and Haran was one of the believers in the true God of heaven. But his heart was not firm, nor his faith sure. Wherefore Haran said in his heart, If Abram be delivered from the furnace, then shall I know that the God of Abraham is indeed the true God. Wherefore Haran wavered in his faith, and his confidence waxed not great in the Most High God, but the rock of my salvation, and the word of God faileth not. My confidence was secure, for I knew that it rested upon the rock of my salvation, and the word of God faileth not. Now when the king heard the words of my father, he caused that Haran should also be taken with me, and leading me to the vale of Kasdim, they stripped of us all our clothing, and bound us with cords, and cast us into the fire. Now Haran, because his faith was not perfect in the Lord his God, was consumed in the fire, that no trace of his body remaineth. But my faith remained firm in the Lord, and he sent his angels to sustain me, and released me from my bonds. And I was 3 days, 3 nights in the furnace with the angels, conversing with them, and being instructed by them. After the 3rd day, the king sent his servants to govern the fire, that it might again be used for making brick. But when they came up to the furnace, behold, I was sitting therein conversing with the angel whom God sent. Therefore the servants of the king, being greatly astonished, went and told him of this matter, but he would not believe them. However, when the men persisted in their tale, and showed great consternation, King Nimrod himself came unto the furnace. But the angels had departed, and I sat alone in the flames. And when he saw me therein unconsumed, the king cried out in alarm, O Abram, Art thou a sorcerer greater than ours, that thou shouldst live in the flames, unconsumed? But I answered him, Not so, O king, but the God of heaven, who is the true God above all, hath sent his angels unto me, and hath preserved me from this fire. Being much amazed, the king exclaimed, Come forth then from the fire, for I see that no power of mine can harm thee. Whereupon I ascended from the furnace, and I stood before the king and his counselors, who examined me closely. But behold, even my hair was not singed. Wherefore the king caused garments from his own wardrobe to be brought, and I was clothed therein. And he caused me to be seated upon a throne at his right hand, where my father was wont to sit. And he said unto me, What of Haran thy brother, who was cast into the furnace with thee? Did the angels carry him away to some far place, that he might be saved? But I replied unto him, Nay, but the faith of my brother was not perfect in the Most High God. Wherefore he was consumed in the flames. Upon hearing this, the king marveled, and permitted me to speak in his court concerning the Most High God, and the redemption which should be wrought in behalf of those who believe on his name. Nevertheless, the heart of the king was not changed, for he glorified in power, and he thought to learn from my power by permitting me to speak. But about 300 men of those who sat in the king's court were converted unto the Lord, and followed no more after the evil order of Nimrod. Wherefore they were cast out of the king's presence. But as for me, the king gave me many gifts, and sent me away in peace, and many were joined unto the believers in the Lord from that day. For having heard of my salvation from the fire, multitudes came to my father's house to hear of the God who could do such mighty things, and many were converted unto the truth. Now among the believers were Lot, the son of Haran, and Haran's daughters Milcah and Sarai. Milcah was fair, but Sarai was beautiful above all women. Her face was as that of an angel filled with light. Her cheeks were as two roses in full bloom. Her hair was spun, which men treasure above all. Her eyes as pools of blue, reflecting the glory of God's sky. Her nose delicate and lovely, and her countenance truly was fair as the sun. Her breasts like two mountains rising above the plain of Shinar were fair to behold, and her complexion truly like the clouds in purity. Her arms were comely, her hands perfect and delightful to behold, always in the service of those in need, and quick to hasten to the service of the Lord her God. Her palms were lovely, unmarred by her constant labors, and her fingers long and slender. Her feet were comely, and always set in the path of the truth. Her thighs were well rounded and soft, yet never failing to sustain her in her labor of love in behalf of the servants of God. Truly, no maiden was fairer than Sarai, the daughter of Haran, for her beauty was greater than all other women, and she excelleth them all. But with her beauty was great wisdom, and faith in the Lord, and constant service in behalf of the saints. For her hands never ceased from blessing the people of God. Wherefore my brother Nahor took Milcah, the daughter of Haran, to wife, but I, Abram, took Sarah at the direction of the Lord, and I found joy in her. I can hold up there.
Yeah, wow. Well, first of all, I don't remember what chapter it was, but it mentioned Nimrod being specifically the son. It says, your father is the devil.
Yeah.
Thou art the son of perdition.
Mm-hmm.
You know my thesis of the Antichrist being a resurrected Nimrod. That's Second Thessalonians 2:3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do agree with you that that bloodline as well is the seed of Satan, and I believe that the Ham was the preservation of the seed of the serpent through the flood. And this kind of lines up with all of that. But as far as the next portion, which I want to give you a chance to go into whatever you're going to cover, but that's where it goes into the story of the dream, and his leaving with Sarah and Lot and all of that. But
for the audience that doesn't know, he was Zen was continuing where he left off in the Writings of Abraham text.
Yes.
In this text, all of this follows the Tower of Babel incident.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's the same in Jasher, and Jubilees kind of skips over a whole lot of this stuff.
A lot of that, yeah.
But it would be interesting to bring this text in, because I've been for the longest time wanting to write the Nimrod story, Nimrod, the Tower of Babel, as it's depicted here. I mean, there's like 200 pages worth of stuff in Jasher,
right,
on Nimrod versus Abraham.
Yeah, this particular story is also very interesting in that when the whole thing of the angels that go to burn forth Sodom and Gomorrah and destroy them, it goes into detail as to their sins,
yes,
and how and what they are involved in, and my gosh, they are wicked to the core.
Yeah,
and in understanding that aspect of the story, it makes sense why God just outright destroyed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Some other things, we only got like 4 minutes before this is over. It'll be good because we'll pick up on yours. You can read the Targum again on Genesis 12, and then I'll read the Jasher version of this, so we can. It's interesting because the writings of Abraham are almost identical in terms of the stories that are being told to what's in Jasher. So it seems like one's validating the other. I mean, they're confirming witnesses, especially because people want to throw a lot of doubt on Jasher, and I'm like, guys, there's no reason, all because somebody says, it didn't show up until the Middle Ages. Yeah, a copy of it did, but I mean, we've talked about it plenty of times in previous shows, but the version of Jasher that we have today can trace back at least as far back as Ptolemy, and was the reason for the translation of the Septuagint in the first place.
Yes.
But if this was recovered from an Egyptian tomb, again, I would love to see if we could find something that would date that tomb to figure out what time period. Because I mean, it's telling the same stories.
Scroll.
Yeah, it's telling the same stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I don't remember if Jasher covered the duration of time that he was in the furnace, because this writing says 3 days and 3 nights. So I find that interesting because you have.
Oh yeah, very very much so. Right.
You have the Job story. Well, I mean, Abraham's life is so much paralleling Yeshua.
Yes.
And Moses to some degree too, but also you got the. I always forget the Hebrew names, but they were changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yes.
So you have that story. But 3 days and 3 nights. I mean, I don't think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in there that long. They were just kind of in and out, I think, fairly quickly by comparison.
Yeah, I think so, right. Mm-hmm.
But like they figured they just kept the fire burning because they're going to use it for bricks or whatever.
Right.
And when they open it up,
check on them, yeah.
They open it up 3 days later, like, whoa, dude, like he's still there, he's in.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
And so much for the black Hebrew Israelites.
Oh right, yeah, with the story of Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah is clearly a hot white chick.
Yeah, with blue eyes and rosy cheeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, which I use this even in the ancient accounts of Christ, from like Pontius Pilate, all that contradicts as well, and so I just bring forth in the show that I've done on what Yahushua looks like, these ancient accounts. I'm not trying to contend with anybody or declare one way or the other. I'm just sharing what it says. Ancient accounts say themselves exactly.
Yeah, look, here's a papyrus pulled out of an Egyptian tomb that's about the life of Abraham, he's describing his own wife.
Right, exactly.
He got very Song of Solomon-ish here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, he's like, yeah, all right. So yeah, we got a minute left, a minute and a half or so. Did you send this copy? Do I have this writing in the library?
I think I sent you everything that I created up to that point, but let me know, because I did release this in a book called the Book of the Order of the Ancients, and it's together the writings of Abraham with the scroll from Elijah the prophet called the Order of the Ancients.
Oh, wow.
And that I do not believe that I've sent you. So
okay,
I'll send you that copy, because it goes into the Melchizedek priesthood, the Order of the Ancients, the Church of the Firstborn, and how it's all linked to the Melchizedek priesthood and how it began in paradise with Adam before he fell. And that story is also from another manuscript called the Kitab al-Magali, and it describes how Adam was made priest, prophet, and king in the Church of Eden before his fall. That the Order of the Ancients is based on that, and the Melchizedek priesthood is also linked to it. So
wow, fantastic. Well,
yeah,
this is, as usual, another great show. Thanks, Zen, and we'll see you on your show next week and pick up where we left off, kind of continuation of all this.
Sounds good, brother. Be blessed off.
All right, blessings, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.